'77, the summer of the Jubilee, a time when the nation united in spontaneous gestures of patriotism, a time when the then top 20 record charts were dominated by this original version of the national anthem by the Sex Pistols.
God save the Queen! She ain't no human being! There is no future in England's dreaming! So it's all over what you want and it's only so over what you need. There's no future for you!
The summer of '77 was also the summer of punk. Despite a ban by the BBC pop network Radio 1, the Sex Pistols' loyal tribute topped the charts in Jubilee week. And in the King's Road, Chelsea, the exotic punk fans mystified the tourists with clothes and makeup even more bizarre than their music. But to the music business itself, they represented something far more significant. Nothing less than the first twitch of life in 10 years. Offensive, outrageous, but potentially profitable. As far as the general public was concerned, punk first surfaced in the autumn of 1976, when the Sex Pistols with lead singer Johnny Rotten suddenly made punk music front-page news. They outraged pretty well everyone by what seemed a string of gratuitous and mindless obscenities. But what the headline writers didn't realise was that punk wasn't just a publicity gimmick. It already had a steadily building audience amongst young people, and they felt that punk was radically different from the existing rock music establishment. What musicians do you write? I mean, who do you think is a good singer?
I don't. I don't have any heroes. They're all useless. Well, there's no bands around, is there? None. None that are accessible.
Well, before you...
Unless you pay a $5 to see them, and then you can't see them.
And what sort of people came to see you in the beginning?
I don't know, just bored people. Bored out their brains with hippies.
What's this thing you got against hippies?
They're complacent.
You were just attacking Top of the Pops and the sort of bands that are on there. What, do you think they're relevant to the kids 16, 17?
Of course they're not. Relevant to their mums and dads, but that's about all.
What about bands like Rod Stewart?
What about him?
Mums and dads, yeah.
He's all round, isn't he? All round entertainment.
He's an old
Do you wanna make tea at the BBC? Do you wanna be? Do you really wanna be a top? Career opportunity, the one that never knocked. Every job they offer used to keep you up the dock.
Rejecting established music heroes was crucial to punk. Another successful London group, The Clash, put the boot into ageing rock millionaires whose music and lifestyle had been dominant for so long.
It's got nothing to do with them anymore when, like, Rod Stewart gets up there and starts, like, going on with his string orchestra, you know what I mean? It's not what you feel like. So you've got to have some music what you feel like. Otherwise you go balmy, don't you?
I think their attitudes really stink. Now, anyway, there's just like... There just has to be new groups, and then that's what you got.
The Sex Pistols say they hate hippies, everything they stand for, and the hippies are what went wrong with music. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's right. I think that's where the complexities came in, you know? When people thought, oh, we better buy a Moog synthesizer, or we'll get caught out, you know? Like maybe...
If there's any around, they should, like, you know, jump into action immediately. Because, you know, I suppose it ain't their fault. They've had too much dope.
Yeah, lying on the floor and looking at the ceiling.
But it's another generation to yours.
Yeah, one that went wrong.
Unlike Unlike the dope generation, the new wave bands seemed to speak directly to their audience about things they felt mattered to them, living in tower blocks and surviving on the dole.
If they wanna get me making noise, if they wanna get me, well, I got no choice. Career opportunity, they wanna
The school I went to, right? I mean, they're sort of like, all the kids are supposed to sort of like be factory project, you know, that sort of stuff. And like, the school's sort of built, it's a real sort of depressing school and that. And you go there, you don't learn nothing. All you're sort of like working for is just to go into the factory which is around the corner, or something like that. And, well, most of the mates I know are all working in the factory.
Are there a lot of your fans on the dole? I mean, do they feel the same way?
Yeah, else they wouldn't come to our gigs, would they?
If they weren't on the dole, would they be your fans?
Well, I mean, if there was jobs, then they wouldn't be on the dole. And maybe we'd be singing about love and kissing or something.
It's because it's music made by people that feel an oppression and a depression. And it's exactly the same reason they're singing, because they can't get no work, they can't get this. And the only way they can get it across to like the media is to sing about it and cause havoc the way they do.
Another fundamental part of punk's attraction was the belief that anyone could be a musician. This was exciting for the punk fan, but it naturally led to some rather basic performances.
Because you don't have to be a fantastic musician, you don't have to be old, you don't have to be in the music business years, you can just get a guitar, play for a few weeks and go on stage and do it.
And the punk magazines like Sideburns gave advice like this. And fans like Susie took them up on it. Have you tried to get a band together?
Yeah, I did the 100 Club, the punk festival. Susie and the Banshee.
What did you sing?
The Lord's Prayer via Twist and Shout, Knocking on Heaven's Door, and a bit of Deutschland, Deutschland, über alle.
And what went down the best?
All of it. It got boring in some parts, but it picked up.
Are you singing?
Yeah.
Had you sung before?
Not on stage, no.
Did you think that was important?
No.
And who was backing you up?
Sid Vicious on drums, Steve Spunker on bass, Marco on guitar, and me just doing the vocals.
The kids kind of got fed up of copying, you know, everything was like rejuvenated old stuff. And they went for a lapse where they didn't know what they were doing. And well, punk broke loose and gave them a direction, which is what they really wanted, something of their own, something that they could personally identify with and call their own.
Though punk was indeed the kids' own music, it couldn't have happened without some imaginative entrepreneur providing the opportunity for it to emerge. Malcolm McLaren is the manager of the Sex Pistols and the owner of the now famous punk clothes shop in London's King's Road, Seditionaries. When he set up the Sex Pistols in 1975, McLaren borrowed the label punk from New York, where it described a very particular trend in outrageous clothes. But London punk was very different. Raw, working class and deliberately anti-establishment.
Move! Come on, get them off.
I'm not drunk.
Move back on your neck.
But in London, as in New York, there grew up a vital connection between the music and the clothes. Punk fashion and makeup was designed from the start to shock and outrage a public that had come to terms with blue jeans and long hair.
It's got nothing to do with the 50s or the 60s. It's a sort of a fashion from the present and the future. It's a symptom. The ideas come from the violence in the streets and kids with no work, out of work, and a general feeling that there's nothing to do. And they always want to be different, and they want to express themselves in a violent and shocking way. It's a grassroots fashion movement. The kids dictate what's going to be worn. No one tells them what to wear. If they don't like it, stuff we sell, they don't buy it.
I am just a vision on your table.
Where do you live, Granny?
I live in Finchley.
Do you live at home?
Some of the time, yeah. But I mainly like going out places and I get back too late, so my mum and dad don't like it too much.
When you're living at home, do you do your makeup like this?
Yeah, but my mum and dad aren't too pleased about it. They prefer me to go out and do it.
What, they don't want you to be seen leaving their house like that?
I think they're a bit ashamed, really, you know. They think, you know, I brought my daughter up well, but, you know, now look at her.
It's like a comic strip.
Something out of space or something. You never know.
What do your mum and dad do?
What, for a living?
Yeah.
My dad works for television, he works for ATV. And my mum's just an ordinary housewife.
And what did you look like before?
All sweet.
What colour was your hair?
It was sort of like a golden ash blonde.
What length?
But just down to here, you know. So I've always had my hair done different styles, you know, but it was always long. And suddenly one day, my friend cut my hair. Mum came upstairs and I sort of hid into the wardrobe pretending I was hanging up my stuff. She goes to me, "Oh, your hair's on the chair like this."
How do you make it spiky?
Well, at the moment it's sort of gone curly, but usually I sort of wash it and dry the roots standing up like this all over. Then I put gel on it, you know, hair gel, rub it all in. Usually stands up, if I'm lucky.
Of music and fashion is one of the factors that has helped punk to succeed where previous exclusively musical vogues had failed. And as the new bands caught on among young people, a backup industry developed to support them. And record shops specialised in selling records on tiny punk labels, and Xerox punk magazines boosting bands like the Stranglers.
Ain't got time to wait. I said something better change.
The established record companies were at first slow to respond. Di Davis, one of the managers of the Stranglers, had to wait 6 months before United Artists executive Andrew Lauder finally reacted.
It just didn't particularly appeal to me when I first heard it because it didn't sound like anything else and it wasn't anything I thought I was looking for at the time.
A year later, you're managing a band called 999. Now,
Yeah.
what's the reaction of the music industry to them?
Oh,
a
you
year
can't
after
keep
the
them
whole...
away. You can't
Yeah.
keep them away. I mean, within a week, we took the band on after doing about 3 gigs, and within a week of that, we had about 8 record companies ringing us up, half of whom hadn't even seen the band, offering sort of preposterous deals. Or if not preposterous deals, offering lunch.
So, by the summer of '77, punk had become a success. It had its own hit parade in the music press. Punk discs had scaled the conventional top 20, tipping out middle-of-the-road bands like ABBA. In June alone, Virgin Records, who had signed the Sex Pistols after EMI and A&M had dropped them, sold 200,000 copies of Sex Pistols records. And from all over the country, hopeful bands were driving down to the capital. Bands like Dead Fingers Talk from Hull.
A gig here for a £5 than a gig in County Durham for £100 because you get a lot more out of it, right? And like, we're in this business to make it. We want to be successful, right? We don't do anything else. And so London's where it's at, without a doubt.
Yeah, playing up there, even though you're getting great responses and fairly good money, is not furthering your career.
knows about it, do they?
What do you think, Bobo? I mean, are you happy to have come down to London?
Yeah, I'm glad to be in London.
What sort of things have happened since you've come to London? I mean, where have you played for a start?
We did the Roxy. We've done a lot of gigs that we've been doing for a fair bit, like the Greyhound, Rochester Castle.
And where are you all living?
This is my house.
Do you like our house?
That's my kitchen over there, that cookery. This is my bed here.
Yeah.
So, what do you think how long will you be prepared to carry on plugging away in London?
As long
Always.
as it takes.
To get what though? To get a record deal? Or
Yeah,
what?
we want a record deal, we want the press to come and see us, we want to build up our fans,
we want to
go and play.
We love entertaining people.
The Roxy in Covent Garden. Clubs like this were the starting point for aspiring punk bands. A year ago it was turned from a fading gay disco, the Shagarama, into the 70s punk equivalent of the Liverpool Cavern Club. Every Wednesday at the Roxy is audition night, when punk bands like Nothing from Caterham in Surrey hopefully queue up to perform in front of record company scouts.
It's a place to play, you see, it's not a bad place to play.
Me and him are doing 3 A-levels, so we can't afford to. We're schoolboys.
When did you finish school?
I've got another year to do yet, I'm halfway through 3 A-levels,
Really?
I'm doing English, British Constitution and Geography. He's doing maths, physics and chemistry.
Meanwhile, to the sumptuous offices of the major record companies like CBS in Soho Square, the success of punk rock has brought both a promise and a problem. The promise for UK Managing Director Maurice Oberstein is of a boom in the pop business, and the problem...
I had a problem with the new wave for punk bands in terms of trying to separate my experience, which told me you had to be a professional in the musician sense, that you could play your instrument particularly well, that every lead guitarist I looked at had to play as well as, fill in the blank, whether it's Beck or Hendrix, that I looked at a drummer on the basis of his technical virtuosity. That suddenly you came up with bands who seemed to be unschooled in what was your normal touchstone of decision-making. Did they play well? Could you hear the lyrics? Did you get a feeling that this was something that moved in the stream of another band? It was all new in the sense of suddenly being a revival of high-energy music, played with low-energy intensity in terms of these huge 10,000-watt PAs. I mean, that was really the distinction, that suddenly you were getting an awful lot of energy that you might get from a Led Zeppelin or from a heavy metal band that was coming across the footlights from this little stage tucked away in the Roxy. Question. We had to rethink whether we were capable as people to judge what our audience who buy our records wanted.
Do you think you should employ people at CBS to look for bands who are the same generation, if you like, as the people making the music?
That's a hoary old question. That's like saying, should we choose singles by having a teenage panel, or should we choose the next Donny Osmond single by having a group of 12-year-old girls decide? No, it's our business to be able to make these decisions, right or wrong.
So Maurice Oberstein and his colleagues in the big record companies would take themselves down to audition night at clubs like the Roxy to sit in judgment on budding bands like this one, the Bears from Watford.
The Year of Punk Part 2, production number 22586, recorded on the 19th of December 1977, take 1.
Although punk has turned out to be more than a 9-day wonder, its success has proved a mixed blessing. Punk itself has begun to change. This is 14-year-old Roger Bullen, drummer in a band called Eater, when it was filmed in the early days of the Roxy by club DJ Don Letts. What's happened to Roger Bullen, known to his public as Degenerate, constitutes a punk case history. We talked to him and his mother in the Roxy bar. What happened to them? Why did you leave?
I didn't leave. They threw me out.
Why did they throw you out?
They said he wasn't good enough.
No, they said I wasn't good enough. But the reason was they were a bunch of wankers, a bunch of wimps.
Do they all still live at home with you?
Yes, occasionally.
I don't live at home. Caitram's a shithole.
Well, you do live at home sometimes when you get hungry.
Home for Dee and mother Helen Bullen is Caterham, south of London. Many parents might have worries about introducing a 14-year-old to the life of a punk rock star, but not so Helen Bullen. Are you acting as his manager?
Oh,
no, she's acting as my mother.
Well, when he joined the band, you know, Rat introduced him to the band, you know, got him an audition because he was teaching him to drum. And he said, we've got to choose you a good name. We can't just be ordinary Roger Bullen. You've got to be something outrageous like me, you know, rat scabies. So they sat there and looked through the dictionary and he said, Degenerate. Yeah, that's good. D, you know, 2 E's, you know, that can be your first name. I said, oh, yeah, that's great. So it's just caught on, you know.
How the old place has changed, hasn't it?
In the front room of the Bullens' Caterham home lives Robbie.
Oh, this is so I don't get a headache, isn't it?
Grandfather of Degenerate, sister Caroline and little brother Lee. What does Robbie think of Roger being a punk star?
I've thought, first of all, excuse me, I thought that's through smoking too many cigarettes. I thought, first of all, he was ever so young, and very young to be exposed to such a lot of stress. I have pointed out to him that his mother has been his guide and mentor. I told his mother several years ago, when he was about 5 or 6 years old, I said, when Roger grows up, he's going to be something, good or bad, because he goes all out for anything. And up to now, I think he's been exceedingly good.
How long do you practice every day?
Well, I don't practice every day. Just sort of, when I do, it's usually for about an hour. But most days I just stay in bed because I get very tired.
What about going to school?
I do that, yeah, I do that sometimes.
How much school have you missed?
It said on my report I had 72 absences. That was just one term.
What did it say on the rest of your report? What's it said on the one you just had for the end of the school year?
Nothing much.
Oh, go on, what do you say? That bit at the bottom.
What about?
The general bit.
Just said Roger's interest is in drumming.
What did your mum say about it?
So at least I know what they're talking about.
While Degenerate, still trying to form another band, is learning the hard facts of life in the music industry, other groups are finding other difficulties.
Here's the Main Street for London and Noise Gear. Seeing some convicts all out here. It's probably Teddy Boys, you know. Seeing as though he's the one that smashed the gear up in the first place. Right, and this one, we're going to dedicate it to the Teddy Boys. We hate them as much as you did, you know. And this one's called Antisocial, and it's...
Screwdriver from breezy Blackpool, attracted to London by the bright lights, streets paved with golden discs, and a recording contract they hadn't bothered to read, they swiftly fell foul of the new enemy of the punks, the Teddy Boys.
There's 5 of us and a 4 a roadie and a manageress. We're loading the gear up, and there's about 1 mic stand left outside and a few drum stands. I look round the corner and there's all these Teddy Boys stood on a corner. And they all came down, he goes, here, what we got here? We got some fucking punks, you know. So, we never said anything, because it's not wide when there's 30 of them. So we, you know, they started messing around, and you know, most Teddy Boys are pretty soft. So none of them would do anything, and they're all going, come on, you know, with all the mates behind them, and if any of us moved forward, they moved. And then finally one of them was brave enough to pick up the mic stand and shove it through the back window, you know, bust the window. So he picked up one of his drum stands and he swung round and hit him in the teeth, and knocked his teeth out.
Oh!
She's grateful.
As punk caught on among young people, it became a focus for traditional adolescent rivalries. Punk versus Ted was just the latest stage in an age-old war that's seen mods and rockers, football bother boys and skinheads come and go. Why have you come down here today?
To make peace with the Teds.
Danny, you said
no.
you'd talk to me.
Seriously. I just come down here, that's all. There's nothing else to do where I live.
Where'd you come from?
Mepham in Kent.
From Kent?
Yeah.
What did you do during the week?
Huh?
What did you do during the week?
Work.
What at?
Shop assistant.
Why have you come down?
Why? To do them. They do me during the week, I do them at the weekend. You know what I mean?
Why have you come down here?
Because I hate the
Gary, no, come on, you just...
No, I'll come down, right, because it's our street. I'm allowed to come up here. Please say we ain't allowed, because the way we dress, we ain't allowed down here.
But on this rainy Saturday, the Teds didn't materialise, and the punks' display was more for the benefit of the police, the tourist, and us.
John? The one in the brown cardigan.
Whilst Fleet Street's interest in punk was centred on the King's Road clashes, in Dryden Chambers, just off Oxford Street, punk's own journalists were more concerned about what success in media terms was doing to punk itself, and to them. Mark P. was a bank clerk in Deptford when he started Sniffing Glue magazine in July 1976 as a reaction to the apathy of the music press to the punk scene. Since then, his magazine has had dozens of imitators, and Mark has his own bands and is advisor to a record label. Danny is the current editor of Sniffing Glue. They feel that punk has moved on from its early image of dole queues and tower blocks.
I can't even, I don't know, because obviously I could just talk about myself. I mean, I can go home tonight and I'm in the comfortable council house in Deptford, you know, and I'm not on the dole now because I had to go off it. I mean, you know, there is kids on the dole, but there's like hippies on the dole, there's Teds on the dole, you know.
So you think that was just an enormous generalisation?
Yeah, so you've got to have a base for anything, you've got to have a base. You know, anything you do, you've got to have a base, you've got to have one fault going through each of the minds in the movement. And then you break away, which was like, oh, we're all on the dole, we want change. And then it broke away, but it needed that strength, or otherwise you wouldn't have had a Clash, you wouldn't have had a Pistols.
But we've got no pride like this, don't be a working class sort of thing, oh, over this way, everyone. If people ain't, I ain't got any sympathy with people around my way, if they ain't got any idea, you know, what's going on, if they can't be bothered to get out of the office, in fact, we ain't got no sympathy with them. We're not trying to liberate the old generation, we've got no dopey illusions like the hippies having tomorrow, we're all ruling the country, nothing like that. But as long as people in this country are trying to stop us doing what we're doing, and that's the main thing. I mean,
how are they stopping you now, though? Because you formed
Sex
your
Pistols
own...
can't play.
Yeah, but as far as you two personally, very enterprising. You've got your own record label, your own group, and your own magazine. So who's stopping you doing what?
I mean, the records don't sell in Woolworths, do they? You know, the magazine doesn't. That's where the criteria comes.
I mean, there's an attitude, which is, like you said, it'd take 2 hours to go, which has got nothing to do with the people we mix with, but nothing to do with where we come from. It's against the powers that be, if you like, right? But it's got nothing to do, I mean, I hadn't been 3-4 nights a week over Bermondsey, like, you know. I've got a telephone in my bedroom. Listen, all that silliness about the dole being hard. 15 quid a week for nothing, that's hard, right, you know? Will give me that hardship the rest of my life. I don't want to go to work.
What did Mark's parents feel about him becoming a punk pundit?
No, they say that I ain't making any money, and I keep saying, well, like, when it's all over, I can become a big executive in a record company, and that calms them down. No, they think it's... They always say, oh, look, you know, don't do this, don't come around the pub when I'm there. But when I go around the pub, they buy me drinks all night, so they must like it.
What does your dad do?
He's a caretaker.
What does your dad do?
He's a docker. Was a docker, he's took the severance.
Yeah. Did your mum go out to work?
She's in catering. Still seems a bit irrelevant.
Mum works in the factory. Yes. It's going to disappoint a lot of people to hear that we're not from broken homes and we're not a special band of thugs and that. It really is. But we're not, honestly. We're your kids.
In the beginning, as you say, it was a working class thing, and there are a lot of kids on the dole. You think it's attracted a lot of hangers-on now?
Oh. Well, what Sandra Rhodes, the punk chic look, 200 quid you can buy, you know? Get shops selling trousers like I mean, these $2.99, these are army surplus. You go down to King's Road, these are going to cost you 16, 17 quid. But that's all some people want to know, the kids will pay it, which is a total antithesis of what started out, you know. It's a rich kids trend at the moment, which is the biggest insult to us, because our life's been treated like a fashion and a trend.
I don't put down kids who've got safety pins through their ear holes, you know, because that's all they got, you know. But it's like when there's sort of like the Sloane, you know, the Sloane Rangers, you know, when they get into it, and they make me sick the way, as you said, they treat our life. They just, you know, like 4 pages in Harpers and Queen, they think that's the history of our life, you know, and that's just not on, you know. I'm really against those people. Although I had lunch today and I had scampi and mushroom cooked in wine sauce and rice. I mean, I don't mind going into that world, you know, but I say what I want in it, you know.
Mark told me it had been a working lunch with him in his role of professional punk.
They want to know when did the new wave start, little details. So I give them little details, you get 40 quid in the hand. What's wrong with that, you know?
Ironically enough, it is Chelsea shops like Seditionaries, the shop owned by Malcolm McLaren and his partner Vivian Westwood, which now embody those aspects of punk that Danny and Mark despise.
I expect the main heading you could really give them now is distinct from the sex thing. I think you'd have to call them urban guerrilla. I think that's the main kind of theme that would make people understand them. They've got touches of primitive things. People who come in my shop, I've noticed Jordan wear sort of rather tribal makeup sometimes. Things like this are reminiscent of Greek peasant costumes, this little kilt, and like the tartan of this jacket and everything. It's got an old sort of feeling to it, a little bit to do with, I don't know, rather sort of bandits in the countryside, that kind of thing. Something that you might have seen at the Battle of Culloden, something like that. But,
without all the bondage straps.
Yeah, well, those are what make you feel very heroic, all those things. They add to the whole feeling that you have. They're very romantic, the whole sort of mood of these when you get them on. As I say, they've got these primitive touches, things like the trousers all come with a little loincloth on the back. Everybody wants to know what that's for. It's just a loincloth. It's just a gesture of some kind of tribalism, really. You could always point out that maybe it's got some connection with the fact that this zip goes right round the back up the arse as well. I don't know. People try to make that connection sometimes.
What sort of people are buying them, Vivian?
All kinds of people. I don't know who these people are half the time. I don't know if it's somebody. I think, my goodness, you know, what does that old lady? You know, what is? You know, she's really getting into those trousers, and if I don't ask her where, you know, what kind of background she's got, I just sort of think, well, she's perhaps an art lecturer somewhere. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't go to Hong Kong or to somewhere, you know, and get something made up cheaply. I rely on English craftsmen to make things for me, and I think that people do appreciate what they're actually paying for. And if I were the Prime Minister, One of the things I would do to help the economy of this country is to take more care of English craftsmen.
So Punk Kids' amateur fashion ideas have been successfully taken up by professional designers like Vivienne Westwood. At the same time, the raw do-it-yourself musicians have found themselves embraced by the mainstream record industry. Not all of them have enjoyed it, perhaps because it meant a change for punk itself.
There are some bands that would feel much more comfortable on a smaller label, would feel terrible walking through Soho Square into a reception area where they have to identify themselves and come in. On the other hand, there are bands that recognize that what they're in the business for is the music that they're making, perhaps the message that goes into the music that they are creating. And the place for them to get the widest audience is with a record company that can merchandise, market, expose them to the widest public. So yes, it is a contradiction in terms, and yes, every rebel has always said he doesn't want to become part of the establishment, and this is nothing new.
One of the most rebellious and successful 60s groups was The Animals. We asked former bass guitarist Chaz Chandler, now a record producer, if there was any real difference between punk and his generation.
No, I really don't think there is. I think they're exactly the same as what we ever were.
What do you think the effect of this sort of music will be on bands that are around already, like Slade?
It's going to frighten the life out of a lot of them.
What's the effect been throughout the industry of this music?
Usual things, some holding their hands up in horror, some liking it, and others saying, oh, if we ignore it, it'll go away.
Well, when you listen to what they're saying, some of the musicians are saying now, and they're saying things like they made a band because they want to make political statements and they want to make a comment about the life.
Everybody said that as well in the old days. Doesn't matter. You know, some of them are lying, some of them aren't.
Do you think any of them are telling the truth now?
Oh, somewhere, yeah. That, you know, I seen like that interview he did with Johnny Rotten, I thought it was great. I thought it was a knockout.
Do you think he's telling the truth?
I don't know, it doesn't matter, does he? Does it?
Well, it's all show business.
It's rock and roll, you know, it's fun.
For groups like this one, Slaughter and the Dogs, the last 12 months has been transition from minority cult to commercial success. At the same time, the music has become more sophisticated. At the other end of the scale, punk has given to many young people with no ambition to climb the pop charts the chance to play in a band. A year ago, the punks made their own rules. Now that punk and the music industry have come together, the rules have changed. Groups haven't been able to play by these new rules. When you were at 100 Club, you told me you weren't nervous at all. You just got up there and sang Twist and Shout and the Lord's Prayer, and you just got up and did it, and now you're nervous.
Yeah, I didn't have time to think about it. It just happened, and I went on the stage without thinking about it. Now, I've got nervous breakdowns and everything. I'm just frightened of myself. I usually forget the words and what we're doing. Scatterbrain.
Well, are you more nervous because there's more at stake and you want to get a recording contract and it's more competitive now in a way?
No, it's just myself I'm competing with, that's all. We want a recording contract, but not in the way that we're going to compromise anything that we do. Which is very hard.
Have you had lots of offers?
No. And that is why, probably.